So have you worked with the .NET Core project where your Startup.cs class literally looks like a dump EL, bloated with all kind of stuff from service registration to authentication scheme setup, declaration to database, context setup, Swagger setup, you name it. The list keeps going on and on and on. So imagine you have to change your database provider from SQL to something else. You literally have to scroll through lots of unrelated code before you can get this done. And God help you if you don't change anything else mistakenly. This absolutely defeats the single responsibility principle. In this video, I'll be walking you how I keep my Startup.cs class clean using the concept of installers, and you can do the same as well. Let's dive right in, guys. So this is my configure service, and basically this problem is usually with configure service because most of the time your configure method is usually not a lot. I mean, you have just very few number of things that you really need to set up in it. So this is the way I go about it. The first thing I do is to create an installer folder. So I'm basically going to go to my infrastructure, application core rather. So having created an installers folder, next thing I'll do is to create an interface. So I'm going to be creating an interface. The name of the interface I'm going to be creating is an iInstaller. So I'm going to be calling this iInstaller. And my interface is quite simple, right? So all it's going to be doing is void install services. So having iService. So all of my installers are going to be implementing this interface. No, not from AutoMapper. Should be from Microsoft's extension configuration. So this is where the real work really starts. The next thing I'm going to do is to separate my functionalities, my concerns, right? So there are certain things here that are for database setup. There are certain things that are for authentication setup, for JWT setup. Every one of them is going to have their own installer class. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is to create, so this is my catch installer. So I'm going to create a catch installer. Now my catch installer is going to be implementing installer. Okay, so all I need to do is to copy my catch setup into my catch installer. And that's it, guys. That's as basic as it can get. So the next thing I'm going to do is this is obviously my database setup. So I'm going to have a DB installer. Copy everything that has to do with my database setup and move it to my DB installer. Cool. So let's go back. So I think this has to do with my app settings. So I basically can just add this to, okay, this has to do with course. I can add this to my database installer. So sometimes you might want to be flexible for things that are just one liner. You can actually just add them to or you could actually, if you perceive that they have the um, propensity to grow, you can create an installer for them. So you have course installer, right? So otherwise, you can just add them to a more similar installer. So for app settings, I could actually just do, so I can have the more generic stuff here, including my course installer as well, my course setup rather, in my share tools installer. Cool. So you notice that my app settings setup was actually used for JWT stuff over here. So that makes us want to shift that to JWT installer instead. So we can have JWT installer. So we copy everything that has to do with JWT down to here. We move down to JWT installer. And now we have to bring back our app settings configuration as well, since it has to do with JWT installer. So we can actually call this our MVC installer. So we can also have MVC installer. So basically that's how you keep on going, guys. That's how you keep on splitting all of this setup into their various concerns. So that way you are actually obeying the single responsibility principle. A singular class is responsible for just one thing. So the rest here looks like our service. Setup. Then we copy all of our services, which takes most of the space if you will. As I'm going to be using this concept in our Slack clone video, also I felt it's important for me to show you, since I'm not going to be stressing it during the Slack clone video. If you're not aware about the Slack clone, ongoing Slack clone video, you can easily check the channel for the playlist that is currently going on. Okay, so we have our services installed, and I think the rest has to do with Swagger installation. So we're just gonna copy that out. Okay, so that's been done. The next thing for us to do is to create an extension, an installer extension. The extension is going to make use of the concept of reflection. So it's going to use reflection. Reflection is basically a concept in .NET where you're able to get information about basically anything on your code base during runtime. So that's what we're going to be using to register our services during runtime. Installer extension. So we're going to create that. to fetch all our installers, right? So I know my installers are type of, we can just do Startup.cs, going down to the assembly, exported types, and we're going to use link now. So let's bring in link. Yeah, installer. It's a type of I installers, which is the interface, because every one of them has the interface. So assignable from installer, and I want to give this clause our installer is not an interface, and our installer is not an abstract type. It's not abstract. Okay, so we do a select. In our selects, we do an activator. Use activator to create an instance, and we cast that. And to be honest, guys, you don't need to really deeply understand how this works, but I mean, it's just it's very obvious if you actually read through it. So basically what we're trying to do is to get into our assembly, and we are fetching out everything that has a type of installers, which is basically our interface. We are saying that our installers should not be an interface because we do not want to register interfaces. And basically we are trying to create an instance of these classes, and basically we're casting them. So to be honest, the first time I came across this snippet, I really didn't understand what it was doing. But as time goes on, as I continue to use it in multiple projects, it began to make more sense to me. So yeah, it's okay if you really do not understand how it works. The major thing is that it works, and that's really all that you care about. Okay, so we are going to look through all of our installers, and we are going to call the install services on each and every one of them. So passing in service, and we're passing in configuration for each and every one of them, and yeah, that should be it. What is this? Auto mapper. Okay, so you want to be careful actually. If you're using Automapper, your I configuration should derive from Microsoft extension, not Automapper. Okay, so that's about that. So the next thing we want to do is to go to our Startup.cs class and basically do services, because we have an extension now called install services. Let's see the name of our extension. Install services in an assembly. That's the name of our extension. And it takes just configuration. Okay. All right, guys. So basically, this is how I trimmed down my Startup.cs class. So you can compare what we had previously to what we have now as a one-liner, and you can easily go into each of these installers to change something in the setup, and you are not causing an havoc on another. Leave a like on this video if you gain value from it, and if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, it's a software engineering channel where we do all things software engineering. Subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you can get the next video when we actually upload it. Okay guys, see you on the next one. Bye bye.